Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the modern market, where every day we discuss everything to do with the modern market. That is the crypto market, the NFT market, and how to make some and or a lot of money on the internet. Loaded up for discussion today, we have Sailor via Microstrategy planning to raise $42 billion over the next 3 years to buy Bitcoin. We've also got crypto allegations against MrBeast emerging regarding insider deals and misleading investors. Interesting discussion to have there. And also Coinbase announcing $1 billion of share buybacks as part of Q3 earnings, which are down on Q2. We've also got the latest on price action on crypto and NFTs as usual, plus an awesome conversation with Prof, an entrepreneurship professor teaching the blockchain, Nouns builder, community resident and member of Nouns, Lil Nouns, and many Nounish DAOs, as well as Farcaster Maxi building the GM Farcaster network. So stay tuned for that. Today we have Legendary and Sam in the co-host seats. We're ready to get into it, but just a reminder, friends, that nothing that we say here is unfortunately financial advice, because we don't know anything for sure. So please do proceed with caution and exercise your own judgment. With that out of the way, Prof, welcome to the show with us. Great to have you with us for the first time. How are you doing?
GM, I'm so excited to be here. It's great to finally get to hang out with you here because yeah, it's been a while since I've seen you. So great to see you.
It's been a while. I just want to showcase for 1 second the matching glasses, the Nounish glass that you have with your background. It's kind of getting lost in the background there, Prof.
A little
So
bit, yeah, a little bit. But let me put these on instead so that you can make it, yeah, that way you know for sure it's me. Because it's been a minute since you've seen me, but I'm usually wearing these. So
there we go. Far,
great to
far more
see you.
recognizable for the people who
Yeah,
might not have recognized you immediately.
now you know.
Now we know. We will be getting into all the Nounish ecosystem stuff in just a little bit. It's always an ecosystem that's been super supportive of me, the show, and so definitely want to dive into it because there's still all kinds of opportunity and interesting stuff going on there. So that is one of the things we'll be talking about later on. Legendary,
The little nouns love B-check. I have to say that we love you, B-check.
and we love the little nouns too. Absolutely. Legendary, how are things going your side? Got all the headlines coming up in a moment. How are things going with you?
Pretty good. Had a fantastic moment this morning. Mentioned before the show, my favorite chart pattern occurred, which is the Mark Andreessen repost on something where I've been aping in and buying the bottom for probably 2 or 3 days on a meme, which is a long time for a meme to just keep buying and keep buying. And there was a beautiful movement after the repost, so I'm pretty happy and pretty excited about that. And also on the second note, because it's an AI project, after I had that thread out on AI agents, I actually got to chat to some quite interesting projects that are about to be launched, and kind of will take the feature set that we've seen from AI agents so far a step further. And I'm pretty excited for that. I need my own researching, content writing AI agent to support me throughout my daily life.
Sounds pretty fun. We are going to be increasingly researching the possibilities with AI/media, how we can incorporate at some point. I think Prof might have some thoughts to share on that a little bit later too. Sammy, how are things with you? All well? What's going on?
Yeah, good. So does that mean that there's going to be AI agent super fans? So we're going to have a load of like things that we can't even distinguish there, whether they're human or bots, just in our like replies, just bigging us up. Is that what's going to happen?
Prof, what do you think?
So I know you haven't been on Farcaster lately, B-check, but you really should come back. We have a couple AI agents running around, but one in particular, Aether, is incredibly conversational and very much like you're to a pretty intelligent human. And it's interesting. So yeah, we definitely are going to have super fans. We're going to have a lot more agency, and on Farcaster, because it's built on crypto rails, it has a wallet, it's doing things, it's transacting. So it's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
Aether was the one, Prof, which oh, I think you broke up a little bit there. The connection. Aether was the one that negotiated with the founder of Zora to mint on Zora, right? The other day, is that correct? And there was like 500,000 mints.
Yeah, and there's a Jack Butcher coming soon. He also did a collab. Aether did a collab with Jack Butcher, commissioned him. Yeah, so it's coming soon. we had Martin on GM Farcaster yesterday. Martin is the creator of Aether from the Hire ecosystem, and we dove into a lot of that. So it's pinned on my profile on Twitter, so you can see that if you're interested to learn
Very
more.
interesting. Now we know how to get the top people's attention in the space. Just say that you're AI, then you get their attention.
Apparently.
Immediately. That is the strategy. Look, we're going to dive into more of that stuff in just a little bit. But as usual, let's get into the headlines and the price action to get you up to speed with everything from the last 24 hours. Starting with the price action itself, we have Bitcoin is flat at 72.5K. ETH, unfortunately, is down 1% at 2.6K, likes that number at the moment. Solana is also flat at around $175. On the meme side of things, Doge's obviously been up a lot. It's up 25% in the last 7 days, but flat in the last 24 hours at 17 cents. Pepe is flat. WIF is down 1%. Popcat's down a couple of percent. Still near its all-time high at 1.66. MOG's up 10% in the last 24 hours. And we have coins like SPX, Murad's favorite coin, down 6%. GOAT, their very most prominent AI coin at the moment, 6.9% down at about 56 cents as well. Getting into the headlines themselves, we've got Michael Saylor from Microstrategy, planning to raise $42 billion over the next 3 years to buy Bitcoin. Sammy's going to do a little breakdown of that in just a little bit. We've got crypto allegations against MrBeast emerging regarding insider deals and misleading investors. This was uncovering connections to over 50 wallets linked to MrBeast. Their findings suggest a long history of insider trading, misleading investors, and using his influence to promote tokens. So Legendary is going to have a bit of a breakdown there because it's a fairly long article with various allegations made. And then finally, on the more financial side, Coinbase announced $1 billion of share buybacks as part of Q3 earnings, which are down on Q2. Coinbase has always been a decent indicator of where we are in the market, especially when it comes to downloads on the App Store. I wonder how their revenue is kind of relates to that. We'll reflect on that in just a little bit. Some notable sales from around the space. Tyler Hobbs, Fidenza sold for 25 ETH. Beeple Bull Run for 10.5 ETH. Rafik Anadol wins of Yawanawa. So a lot of high quality art sales taking place. With the Rafik piece selling for 5 ETH. Legendary, that's the price action in the headlines. What's going on in the NFT market?
Absolutely. Let's take a look. Bored Apes are down 1%, 11.35 ETH floor for them. Pudgy's down another percent, 8.77 ETH floor for them, moving away further from the 9 ETH floor. Azuki is basically unchanged, still at a 4.88 ETH floor. Milady's down 1%, unchanged, however, over the last week, really also only down 1%, 4.6 ETH. Didn't manage to do the flipping, didn't manage to flip Azuki's for the time being. In terms of some other collections on the ETH side, not a lot happening. So heading over to the BTC side, we've been observing a fair amount of swings happening with node monkeys, with Bitcoin puppets being up, being down on a couple of days. But again, it's one of those days where nodes are down another 9%, puppets are down 1%. However, quantum cats are managing to hold that 0.23, 0.24 BTC floor, actually up another 1.6%. And we also see a fair bit of momentum in both the Based Angels collection, which will be a good news for just Stefano in the YouTube comments, sitting at a 0.018 BTC floor, up 13% over the last 24 hours. And also the Wizards of Ord up 17% at a 0.016 BTC floor.
I like it. Good summary there for everything that's going on in the NFT market. Getting through the rest of the Web3 roundup to keep you up to speed. We've got BlackRock's Spot ETF breaking records with $872 million of inflow in the last 24 hours. Nillion announcing a $50 million raise to build humanity's first blind computer. A lot of prominent investors and angels in that one. So I'm kind of interested in that. Coinbase commits another $25 million to support the Fair Shake PAC. This is to do with US donations for the elections. Canary Capital files for a spot Solana ETF. So now they have applied for the XRP ETF and Litecoin one as well, I think. So this is another one for them. On the Pudgy side, Great Ghost Pudgy Penguin Physical is on sale today. Doodle's release for mint, certified viral number 7, a spooky series which surpassed 8.5 million views. This is an interesting strategy by Doodles where they take their most viral clips and then they go on chain with them. Rather than trying to mint everything, they take their very best, go on chain, and it's doing pretty well for them. Very interesting strategy, watching that very closely. And then finally, XFTX executive Nishad Singh avoids prison but ordered to forfeit $11 billion. It's just a lot of money, isn't it? One person sitting on 11 billion asked to forfeit. So that is the roundup from the rest of the space. Prof, before we get into the main headlines, anything kind of catching your attention there?
Well, of course, the pudgies. I mean, I have to, I love the pudgies. But also the Doodles strategy. I picked up like 111 of those on Zora because it will turn into a tradable ERC20 because it hit that mark. So if you release something on Zora and it goes viral, it will hit a certain point where you have a 24-hour window. And then when that time ends, it becomes an ERC20 tradable coin. So that's going to happen with that one, it looks like. And there's been a few others, and that's kind of what's been happening with Aether and those coins like the one he did with Jacob and a couple others, NFTs. So that's a different cool mechanic that's built into Zora now with Uniswap.
Very, very cool mechanic. I just want to ask one follow-up question before we get to the headlines, because I think it's worth it there. And I don't know if many people are across what's going on Zora there. So say you mint the NFT first, there's no ERC20. Once it passes a certain threshold, it turns into an ERC20. Does everyone then move to kind of Uniswap in order to trade it? Like how does a successful mint typically play out then after once that?
So if you go to the Zora page of that mint, you'll see once it flips over, you'll then see there's a deck screener. There's you'll see all the trading. You can sell right on Zora and it will do the trade for you. You'll start to see the price action impacting the price of the NFT, regardless of wherever you're trading that. So it is a really interesting mechanic, but if you won't see that, deck screener or anything like that unless it hits that pivot point and once it crosses over to that opportunity. So it's
this almost feels like a pump fund in a way, because you're effectively putting capital, and once it hits that threshold, rather than going to Radium, you're kind of effectively going to Uniswap. So it's almost on the EVM side as opposed to Solana, which could be super interesting for memes at some point.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I didn't realize that. And I did the Schloms mint recently, which I think hit 91,000. I don't know if that hit the threshold. Do you know what the threshold is?
The threshold's about 20. I think it's at 200 mints. It's pretty low. I think that's when it happens. And then there's another, I don't know, some kind of threshold at, I think it's 1111 that becomes an art coin officially. So I don't know if they moved it up, but I know there was something about 200 being one option and then 1111. So with the biggest one that I've seen has been the Zach XBT one. So that one's been crazy. That one's been absolutely crazy. And that was part of that. That was part of the reason, was that people started trading it on the DEX rather than on the marketplaces. So yeah, it's a really interesting mechanic. I've only seen it just recently actually start playing out. It's been available for a while, but it's just now taking off with some of these mints. And I'm assuming that will happen with Doodles because that one is way beyond the threshold. So
I didn't know this. I didn't know this specifically, but we have seen on the Mintify heat map just with base, like you can see that Zach XBT one swings quite heavily in terms of the numbers.
Yeah,
this is the Zach XBT one. I'm just sharing it for the people who are watching. In the Zach XBT meme coin is one of the biggest runners of the day. This was yesterday. $243 million theft is a token tied to a Zora NFT mint, which was commemorating one of Zach's latest investigations. So people were buying the NFT as a commemorative thing. People do this all the time, right? The commemorative NFT is kind of the reason for cheap mints.
Usually mint everything, and for some bizarre, and I usually mint 3, right? For some bizarre reason, I didn't mint this one. And then I'm like, why the hell did I not mint this one? I saw it, I went, ooh, I need to mint that, and then I didn't. And I'm so mad at myself at the moment.
That's insane. So as you can see in the chart, starting off at a really a non-existent valuation, and
Yeah.
once it turned into the meme coin, it went as high as a $10 million FDV. So that's a very, very interesting mechanic. Not just, we've got a lot of creators who listen to the show, and are wondering how to incentivize people, and we've been actually thinking about ways to go on chain moving forward as well. So this is a very interesting observation, and
Are you
we'll
not
talk.
putting your show on chain? You don't
Not
have
yet.
your show on chain?
Not yet, Prof.
Why? Come
We'll
on.
talk about it
Easy.
after. This is where
Maybe
you
check.
educate us more after the show. I know you'll scold us for not being on Farcaster already.
Yeah.
Look, we'll
That's
get
what
to that.
I'm here to scold and educate.
Education / scolding. Right,
Love
let's
it.
get into the headlines, because we want to have that bigger conversation about the potential of Web3 social and these interesting new mechanics that are available to people as well on the show, not just after the show as part of the scolding. First headline is the MicroStrategy stuff. Sam, I know you've prepared a little bit here. What's the download? The headline is obviously that he wants to raise $42 billion over the next 3 years to buy Bitcoin. What are the interesting nuances here?
Yeah, so I think probably just start with the actual chart of the MicroStrategy stock. If we're talking about like the Zach XBT chart, this is the similar sort of pattern where it's just gone parabolic, and actually it's outperformed Nvidia to a certain degree. So I think there's a lot of bullish performance that's kind of correlated with Bitcoin's price action. That kind of makes sense given their strategy historically and also where they're going to go forward. But ultimately, it's 42 billion in capital over. I think it's over the next 3 years that they're planning to deploy to raise equity and also issue debt to keep that kind of solvency ratio reasonably even. So 21 billion in debt, 21 billion in equity over the next 3 years. And I think there's a chart that I've just shared with Legendary to share that kind of to go to the other one. So it's this one here. So this one kind of shows the projections of where it intends to, or how it intends to accumulate. And just for a reference point, you've got, I think the current carrying value is around about, I think it's about 6.9 billion. So you can see that if they're planning next year alone to raise another 10 billion in capital, so half through equity, half through debt, to then deploy into more Bitcoin, you can see that those Bitcoin sort of amounts that they've got on the balance sheet is going to go up quite significantly. So that's more sort of demand to take supply off the market. And you combine that with the ETFs and all these other structural changes, I think it's pretty bullish news. I think just another point, just on the just looking at their current. So if you go to the other chart, sorry, their current carrying value, something to note as well that's changing in the industry. So here you've got a comparison of their carrying value over time to the market value of their Bitcoin reserves. They currently own about 252k Bitcoin. Which if you look at the current spot price on the open market, it's about 18 billion. If you compare the carrying value, that's just under 7 billion. So there's a disparity with how much they're recording in their financial statements to what you could actually sell on the open market. And this includes about 3 billion of impairment because I won't get into too technical terms, but essentially they're accounting for it as an intangible asset, which means that if it drops in price, then they have to recognize a loss through their P&L, and they've recognized about 3 billion of losses. But that accounting standard is being lobbied at the moment, and that could effectively change over the next few years, which means that they'll recognize it at that market value. So there'll be a mark-to-market adjustment, and you could see these balance sheets grow quite significantly if they hold Bitcoin in reserve. So I think it's just quite an interesting direction that they're going. It's obviously been pretty bullish. People who buy MicroStrategy stock are obviously buying it for this Bitcoin strategy, and Michael Saylor's just doubling down on that.
Amazing summary, really nice charts and further explanation there. One follow-up question before we have to keep it moving today, we'll try to throw it funky quickly as well, is, you mentioned on the one hand that people are very bullish on this because right, this person's just going to buy everyone's bags for the next however many years. But there is an alternative opinion out there, which is, in the same way that when other people have levered up in the industry, they become the potential black swan event. After looking at some of these docs, I know it's kind of maybe early to ask, how much risk are you attaching to MicroStrategy at this point and their strategy moving forward to Bitcoin? They're moving into the realms where they're just going to have so much of this asset. Does that become a risk to the industry?
I mean, so they're raising both debt and equity. So I think this company specifically, they're going to have a reasonable like solvency ratio. Like ultimately, if it's a 50-50 split, then you'd expect like 1-to-1 in terms of debt and equity. There obviously will be interest on that debt that they'd have to pay out. So there'll be expenses, but they're trying to outperform that with the yield. So they received, I think, about 5% yield in the last quarter on that Bitcoin. So it's growing. It's trying to outperform the interest expense that it pays out, and it also has the software side of the business as well, which is still profitable. Sure. It's being dwarfed by the Bitcoin stuff now, so it's kind of moving towards that avenue. But ultimately, you got to remember that the average buy-in of this Bitcoin is significantly lower to where it is now. So actually, in terms of like margin calls and all this kind of stuff, I don't think it would be too much of a concern. If he was buying in now and we didn't have these structural changes going forward, then I would be a bit more concerned, because and if they had perhaps a higher debt ratio, so there's a risk of becoming insolvent or illiquid, and being able to pay down those debts, I'd be a little bit more concerned. But I think at the moment, like the way the market's going, the structural changes, like the way they're managing their risk, I think it's kind of reasonable to kind of presume that it might be okay. I don't think this will be the black swan event. I think it'll probably be something else that is a bit more risky, that we don't actually foresee.
Okay. Very, very interesting takes. Maybe let's throw to Funky for a very quick one, Funk, because we've got to keep it moving today. Resident Bitcoin expert, bullish, cautious. What's your thought here?
GM fam, yes, to be very brief, very happy MicroStrategy holder for a long time. And I wonder if I'll even sell anymore, because I thought I was going to, but now I'm like, maybe I just hang on to it. But there was a great thing. I linked it below. The math behind this is insane. Like where it would average out $38.3 million worth of Bitcoin per day when we think about 42 billion. And the amount of it's 10x over what will be produced across the next 3 years. So if they pull this off, it's just a massive coup in terms of collecting and gathering up all that Bitcoin.
Yeah, I saw some relative numbers to like how much is flowing into the ETFs at the moment as well, and it's just such an extraordinary amount that if anyone else was to follow suit, I mean, even if no one was to follow suit, it's going to have huge impact. But the expectation would be that other people would follow suit as well, I guess. Okay, glad we brought that information and deep dive to you guys. Sam, maybe just a quick one on Coinbase. Maybe just a couple main headlines from the Coinbase report where they announced $1 billion share buyback.
Yeah, there's probably, I mean, two points here. So the share buyback, they're looking to do about $1 billion worth of sort of reacquiring some common stock shares, so Class A common stock. They haven't put a specific time frame, but ultimately they've got about 8 billion in assets on their balance sheet, and they want to use that to buy back shares. And that to me is a pretty bullish signal, because that suggests that they don't think they can outperform their own business in terms of a yield than just buying back their own shares. So I think that to me suggests that like Coinbase is probably, they think they're going to do extremely well over the not too distant future. But another thing on there, just in terms of like the key profitable areas, was the stablecoin business. So I think this was one of the only areas that are kind of increased quarter on quarter. And we saw in like the A16Z report, I think last week or the week before, they were suggesting that it's like a massively growing area in the industry. So Coinbase, they make money through their relationship with Circle, so the issuer.
Yep.
And we've seen like BlackRock were outperformed by Tether for their annual results in terms of being more profitable. So it's clearly like a very, very profitable business model. And I think that is something they'll probably end up leaning into more going forward. But yeah, ultimately it's bullish for Coinbase. And I think they're looking to do a lot better than they have previously. Yeah, so I think they're planning to outperform what they can on the open market with that 1 billion in capital.
Perfect summary. That was the only other thing I wanted to bring to people's attention to the stablecoin business, because that was given specific mention in the report. So I'm glad we brought that up. One follow-up question, maybe for Legendary on this, is the one that I keep coming to as I turn over in my head as an investor when I think about holding ETH versus trying to take some risk off in terms of betting against blockchains. But I want to express the bet that I think stablecoins will go crazy in the future, and that number goes up. How do you express that bet? Sure, you can try to pick an ecosystem. You can pick Solana, you can pick ETH, but you don't know which one's going to win long term, for sure. Whereas Coinbase is an alternative way to express that bet. What are you thinking about that ETH versus Coinbase trade at the moment?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I don't know if I would word it like that, to take risk off the blockchain and still be betting on Coinbase. It's like still a pretty degenerate from that perspective, but I get where you want to go with this in terms of like being able to have an upside in the stablecoin business.
Sure.
And I do think from that perspective that we've seen so many new stablecoins being launched. Even Solana had yesterday an announcement that we didn't have a chance to touch on, that they're launching a new stablecoin with one of the labs on Solana themselves.
Yeah.
There's like a lot of competition. It does seem that Circle is a company that is investable, or not directly investable, but Coinbase is an investable company as opposed to, say, Tether. And they are basically the second largest one that you'd be betting on. So I do think it's a reasonable trade, and it's a reasonable view to think about it like that and approach it like that.
Yeah, just need exposure to the stablecoin business directly. And I feel like that's the closest way you can get it at the moment. Obviously, there's talks of Circle IPOing as well, probably next year. So maybe obviously that would be the more direct way, but seems to be the closest way you can get to it at the moment.
Unless we issue our own stablecoin, say modern market USD.
I wanted to say the same thing. Yeah.
That's we've said it for months. This is the best business in the world. So we have to figure out a way to get into the stablecoin business. Look, we'll keep that in mind. Got to literally try to figure that out at some point. Okay, final headline before we get into the conversation with Prof on all things the Nouns ecosystem and the potential and opportunity in on-chain social fi. Legendary. The MrBeast headlines, is this something to be concerned about? People will have seen that there were allegations around his involvement in multiple projects, insider trading, etc., etc. Is this the usual influencer story, or anything more?
It's actually pretty noteworthy. Yesterday, this very, very serious, very lengthy report launched, talking through a variety of allegations against MrBeast, against some of his close friends and content creators on YouTube. And the gist of it, it's a pretty long report. So I'm just going to, instead of sharing the report, go to a quick thread that summarizes some of the main findings. Is that he has allegedly made $23 million in profits of insider trading, of what the report is describing as shady deals, as scams / insider trading from more than 50 wallets that they believe found to be connected with MrBeast. The reason why they believe that these are his wallets is this post that I'm sharing on screen with a CryptoPunk that got bought, where MrBeast commented, "I bought this one," which basically allowed them to find the main wallet and kind of go exploring from there. And then there's lots of examples of what happened. I'm not going to go through all of them because we have to keep the time in mind, just picking one or two out of them. For example, the biggest one being Superverse, where MrBeast invested 100K into the Super token allegedly, and made a total profit of 11.4 mil of selling that. And many people have like kind of posed the question, but I've never seen MrBeast talk about crypto. So how did they do it? And the beauty of that is, or quote unquote, the beauty of that is the subtlety in how this was done. It's either things where MrBeast was commenting on that on X, and obviously it catches people's attention just with memes nowadays when prominent followers are following a meme coin or reposting that. Or, for example, in the case of AIOZ, Web3 AI storage product, where he was an investor, he allowed that company to basically market with the fact that MrBeast was an investor. And that seems to be the MO across various investments, that he either commented on Twitter, was a bit subtle about that, creator friends of him did the same, or just the company that he invested in was able to basically market with, invested by MrBeast, as we also can see in this screenshot that I'm sharing on screen right now. And all of those actions across those alleged 50 wallets that the report believes are MrBeast's wallets led to an estimated profit of $23 million.
Interesting. Okay, so big numbers involved. We were having a little bit of a discussion beforehand. Like, where's the line here? Like, what constitutes what constitutes promoting a token or anything actually when the analytic tools are getting so advanced that people are tracking who people are commenting, which tweets people are commenting on, which accounts are being followed, and when, like, the granularity of the analytics tools are getting so deep that I almost feel empathetic to the creators here who are working with anyone, because everything is being everything is being assumed to be shilling something. Like, if you just follow an account, does that count as um like a formally endorsing someone? I think the lines are getting a bit blurred here. Prof, would love your take on this. You're kind of big in the creator economy. Like, what's your thought here?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I had missed his shilling completely. Like, I remember when he bought the CryptoPunk and that sort of thing, but this reporting was really interesting. I started to read it and then I got lost like halfway. I'm like, okay, wait, there's a lot of wallets here. What is happening? But it was really interesting hearing you talk about this legendary where it could just be a comment, in a thread. It could be when you have a creator as large as him, where people really hang on every word he says, that could be a different level. And it kind of makes me think about the Kim Kardashian case where she ended up paying a 1.2, I think, $1 million fine for endorsing, but that was a clear endorsement, pretty clearly fell into those lines for FCC purposes. This one's a lot more subtle, and I think that you're really kind of hitting on sort of the tip of the problem here is that we're going to see this happen in much more subtle ways where you can influence just by your trading alone. Are you any of you on Interface? So if you follow on Interface, you get these notifications like somebody just traded this, somebody bought this, if you're following certain wallets. So it's just popping up all the time. And it's sort of like, if you remember Icy Tools, like we'd be watching
Yeah.
Icy Tools on Twitter in like 2021. And that became like, oh, I'm going to go ape into this. Interface is taking that over. And if you put a creator like the level of MrBeast, that's going to change a lot of things. So yeah, interesting to see how the law kind of reacts to this situation.
100%. I know Legendary's been going so deep on the analytics tools. Want to give him a chance to come in here.
Yeah, absolutely. Recently did subscribe to Kaito, which tracks exactly what you've been speaking to, Prof. And one of the things is now you can just look at market smart followings, like some of the people who have either influence or are degens with like a positive P&L over the last 30 days. And I found this one of the best ways to just have it open on like one of my screens throughout the day and just see who's the market following, or is it an interesting project? Is it a pump fund ticker? Is it a VC? And just use that to trade. And it's getting to an absurd point. I mean, I mentioned it at the start of the show quite happily that Mark Andreessen reposted the meme that I'm in and added another 100 sold to my trading balance. But it's also absurd from his perspective because he can't talk about anything. Because if there's a meme, it will pump, and if there's no meme, people will make a meme and will tokenize his words. So you get to a point where even if you're not trying to endorse anything, people are looking in your posts and like, what's the ticker in there? What can we do with that? It was the same with MrBeast yesterday. Like, that was one of the questions. Okay, we pour this out. Cool. We don't really care about the findings, but can we make a ticker out of that? And there's been a couple of attempts to have Mr. Jeet and some other things. They didn't work out. But the absurdity, and that's from a law perspective or from a legal perspective, the interesting question is that even if you don't have any intent to endorse anything, you just talk about things, people will add that monetization layer by tokenizing your words, and people will lose money on that, and you can't really be like responsible for that. So it will be fascinating to see where the legal system will draw the line.
Do you know where this is going? This is going to be an absolute nightmare, and it'll be almost impossible to enforce. You very well may get to a position, because of the way the analytics go and what the things that people are paying attention to, is you could get paid to follow an account. Like you could get paid in the not too distant future because that is what people are tracking, and people are buying into things with this express reason being this person followed this account early. I'm going to make a bet on it, or just going to take a flyer on it. That's actually happening as we speak because these tools are being built. How is that enforceable? Like, how does that, like, from a legal perspective, how are you going to get to the point where if you accept payment for following an account, you will be liable for, endorsing it in some way? Like, I just don't know if that's an
I think the
enforceable thing.
disclaimers are going to be where, the rubber meets the road is, are you disclaiming it? Are you posting it? If you're being paid for that follow, you're going to have to disclose it. And that's, you're going to have to, if you're being paid for it. If you're not, then, but if you're being paid for it, you're going to have to disclose it.
I think that probably makes the most sense. In the end, all payment, if disclosed, is probably fine. As soon as you don't disclose things, that's where I think the trouble comes from a legal perspective. So very, very interesting conversation there on the creator stuff. We're going to get more into that right now as we lead into the conversation we're going to have with Prof on nouns and creator stuff. But before we get there, we want to get into our weekly entrepreneurial segment called Publish and Profit, where we explain some of the key secrets and tips to making money online as a creator. I want to get some of Prof's perspective on this as well. Today, we focus on the importance of focusing on long-term partners and why you will eat yourself alive always chasing new partners and short-term deals. This segment is brought to you by Little Nouns, an expansion DAO based on the famous Nouns DAO, who fund cool creative endeavors which can proliferate the nounish meme. So I think there are three main reasons why you absolutely must focus on long-term deals as you develop your content and brand online in Web3 specifically, though I expect this applies to many startups of all kinds. Going to start with some philosophical ones and then get a bit practical. Number one, brand alignment over brand activation. I think brands either need to do some type of activation where they need huge action from your audience, or they want to do some brand alignment and want to be associated with your brand, or maybe it's some combination of the two. But the teams that need to measure every activation aggressively probably means they're going to judge you by a much harsher standard. And if they don't see the results, they'll want to walk away. And I do think that's fine and completely fair in certain circumstances, but I think it's clearly preferable to have a team that wants to align their brand with you instead, because they see value in the quality of people you attract, not just the quantity. So they're less stressed about direct action and see more value in long-term association. The second thing is that the nice thing would be about brand alignment is that the quality teams is that they don't need to always ask your audience to do stuff. Because if you go long with teams, it means the audience can trust that you're in a long-term relationship with them. So they can trust the team more than if they sponsor you for 1 week and disappear the next. If it's a 1 week sponsorship, does your audience know if you still think they are the week after or the week after that? I think it causes a lot of confusion for the audience, and going long-term with teams solves that. And finally, from a more practical perspective, it can take more time to bring in deals than it does to make the content itself, whether that's the initial conversations or even once you've agreed something in principle and then need to negotiate the deals. You'll definitely find that having a few longer term partnerships is more time efficient than having more lower time frame partnerships. The time I save, I can reinvest into my content or in deeper relationships with more long-term partners, which helps grow the revenue stream. Prof, you've gone pretty long-term with a variety of DAOs in the nounish ecosystem. Yeah. What do you think about this philosophy and how's it played out for you?
Definitely agree with all of that, especially the last point. And that just comes from, so I'm also an entrepreneurship professor. I've been teaching for a number of years at Florida Gulf Coast University. I now switched over to just doing that part-time. I just teach one class on blockchain just because I knew it would disappear if I didn't keep teaching it, to focus on Web3 and building GM Farcaster. And one of the things, any entrepreneur, doesn't matter what industry you're in, it is way more expensive to acquire a new customer, a new sponsor, a new whatever, than it is to keep an existing or to have those longer term deals. So you do waste a lot of time sort of doing that business development stuff. So creating those longer term relationships is much more sustainable in the long term and healthy for your business. And for GM Farcaster, one of the big things we've done, we have a very small niche audience. We know this. When people start to come to us with numbers and we're like, nope, this probably isn't going to work for you. If you're looking for that, those numbers, we're not going to hit that. But what we're going to hit is like the right audience for the right sponsor. So making sure also from the side of the sponsor is making sure it's valuable for them, because if they have a bad experience, that's not going to be good for you either. So we're really careful about who we bring on and make sure it's well aligned so that they're getting the true benefit of it. We're getting a good relationship. And even when the partnership ends, we're still talking about them because we believe in what they're doing and there's been a relationship that's built up over time. So all those points you mentioned, dead on for anyone who's creating content, for sure.
I think that's so refreshing. Well, I think it's really helpful for people to hear that being honest and upfront with teams that like, look, this just might not be for you is actually one of the more powerful things. Like, I think when people start out, you want to try to make the deal happen as the entrepreneur, as the media brand. And, you're excited about the prospect. And so you're trying to figure out a way to make it happen when actually being honest about it and being like, look, we can't do the thing that you want. Let's cut now and focus on the people who we're a better fit with. I think that's super important.
Yeah. And sometimes it's also like, it's better for them. It's better for you. You can point them in other directions. There's going to be times where, I could totally see a situation where somebody might come to me with an idea and I'd be like, you know what, this would be better for modern market. You're going to get a better audience for what you're doing. If you're talking strictly trading and things like that, that didn't have a Farcaster focus, it's like, I'm not going to bring you what you need in terms of eyeballs. You need to be over here. And I think from a creator perspective and media perspective, I think it's important for us to not look at it as a zero-sum game either. If modern market is doing well and I can send somebody their way, that doesn't hurt me in the long run, because if it wasn't a good fit for me, I don't have to try and hold on to everything. I can, the better fit will come along. So it's important to think like that too. More abundance mindset, less scarcity mindset.
Love it. Final take, Legendary, you wanted to come in on this?
Yeah, absolutely. Just adding a bit to that audience trust perspective that goes so far. Like, we've seen a very similar thing with the Play Ember community, where I, as a creator, have a professional relationship with them. But that's just my personal one, doesn't involve the modern market. And Benny from the Play Ember community has started streaming the modern market in the Play Ember Discord to share that with the community. It's something that, we never asked for. It's something that does obviously not encompass the like personal relationship, the personal professional relationship that I have with the with Play Ember, because again, it's completely separate from the modern market. But they are doing it because they genuinely like the show. They are trusting that the things that we talk about here are interesting. And that is exactly the beauty of that you don't have to ask for every single thing. And that this trust goes so far, especially in the trustless environment that we want to build on blockchain.
Love it. I think that's a super insightful conversation. Appreciate you guys for contributing to it. Shout out to Lil Nouns, as we said, one of our favorite Nounish communities, for sponsoring that segment. That'll be out with you as a clip on the timeline in just a little bit too. And shout out to Play Ember as well for streaming that. Benny is an absolute legend. I had no idea that was going on, and when I found out, I thought that was like one of the coolest things, that people are actually grouping together watching the live show for an hour each day. Look, we want to get into the conversation with Prof. We've only got just over 10 minutes now. Glad we've managed to get all kinds of other insights on the creator stuff from you already. Probably want to go in two directions here. One, on the Nouns ecosystem, which I think is so cool and creative and interesting, but people have veered away from it more generally because it used to be so expensive. Now the price is so far down relative to where it was, and they think that it's not got stuff going on, which is definitely untrue. And then also from the on-chain media side, where you're super bullish on Farcaster, really think that that's something that people must pay more attention to. So I want to go in those two directions. So maybe for the first one, what do you say to the people who are confused? Like, you're in
Nouns is confusing.
You're in like
Nouns is very confusing. Yeah, so there's Nouns, which started it all, and then there's all these sub-DAOs. And then there's Nouns Builder, which is a way for anybody to create a DAO based on those same mechanics with the similar 5 smart contracts sort of in the background. But I think DAOs in general are not everybody's cup of tea. And if you're focused, and particularly your audience comes here for, thinking about trading and markets and things like that, it's not going to be the best bet. So if you're looking at it from an investment perspective, that's probably not going to be the best option. If you're looking at it from building community, connecting, supporting different projects that you think are interesting, if you are into governance, which yes, some of us are. There's very few of us, but there's some of us who are governance nerds, and that's kind of why, part of the appeal for me. Then it's going to be really interesting for you, and it's definitely a place where you want to get involved because there's a lot going on. The price action is unreflective of the activity, because we just a couple weeks ago we had an animated film festival in LA, 50 animated shorts by some of the top animators in the world, producing incredible content, and some of those are being submitted to the Oscars for consideration in the shorts category. So there's all these crazy things going on. We had, as part of that activation, there was an event with Bob Burnquist, the skateboarder, who is a member of Nouns, and he did a huge activation on his mega ramp. We've got we had a whole bunch of other activities happening in LA, and plus our Nouns esports team, which has been killing it all over the place. So we're supporting a whole bunch of different types of things that are outside of the crypto market, but that are having an impact on the crypto market. Going back to Nouns esports, for example, gaming, notoriously hates us. Mostly going back to taking their freaking, GPUs for mining. But they hate us and they love Nouns. And we hear that over and over and over again, because Nouns is supporting the players and taking it from a very different perspective, less extractive approach than what they've experienced for their pro players. So having that impact, you'll hear it over and over again, that like Nouns this is coming from normies, from gamers. Oh, we like Nouns because, they're not the same. They're not crypto. And it's really interesting. So we're having a very interesting impact. This video is phenomenal. It was so much fun. It was a great, way to kind of come together and show off what we've been building and what we've been doing and supporting artists. Now, oh, by the way, we had our break dancers actually competed to go to the Olympics and didn't make it in. They're way better than Ray Gunn. Should have been in there. Very disappointed. So we're doing all kinds of crazy things like that. So it's pretty exciting. And Lil Nouns in particular is a great entry point. Sometimes a little crazy, sometimes a little we get into some heated governance arguments. But it's also a great crew and a lot of fun. So lots of opportunity, lots of entry points to get in there. So
Two things I'll say about that. One is, we're showing the video on screen for the people who are watching in that Noun Esports created from the Nouns Town event in LA. It's literally the most eclectic set of cool things that you can imagine, which is not the same as a crypto conference, which is not the same as an NFT conference. It's like surfing, breakdancing, gaming, music, art, like sculptures. It's just
live.
so...
There was a live makerspace, so they were actually creating noggles, which are our glasses, live there out of recycled plastic. So just like all kinds of
very cool
board games. We have a Nounish board game that's coming out, so they were play testing it. So there's all kinds of crazy stuff.
Very cool. And then the second thing I'd say,
all kinds of craziness.
on the governance side,
I think I glitched.
I think you glitched a little bit, Prof. On the governance side, genuinely,
sorry about that.
People are actually participating and caring. Like, people talk about governance being difficult, which it is. And I think Nouns doesn't necessarily have perfect participation either. Like, it still faces its challenges in incentivizing people to get involved. But you have people who care so much about the brand. So I just think that's a really cool thing that they've managed to create. One follow-up question then before we talk about what you've been doing on Farcaster. We've just got around 5, 6, 7 minutes left. The sub communities are confusing for sure. Like, people will see a Nouns at 3 ETH, or to just under 3 or around that at the moment and think, okay, that's too expensive or whatever. How do the sub communities actually work practically? What's their relationship with Nouns? Do they have a stake in Nouns? Is it their own thing? Is it all intertwined? How can people get exposure?
It depends on the sub DAO. So some sub DAOs own Nouns, so they vote within the Nouns DAO as well. So Lil Nouns is one of them. But some of the other DAOs are just independent. They're their own thing, and they're just either using the Nounish art or using the Nounish mechanics. So they forked the actual code. So one big thing about Nouns, everything we do is open source, and all of our art is CC0. So anyone can use any of the art without permission. So that leads to a lot of incredible creativity. So best places to start, I think Lil Nouns is a great one. But there's also NARS, which is focused on extreme sports and skateboarding. So if that's your jam, like that's a great one to get involved with. Bob Burnquist was one of the big folks in there. And then there's also other DAOs that are outside, that use Nouns Builder, that are outside of sort of the Nouns ecosystem, but have a connection there, like the Park. And that's what you saw with the musicians that were playing in that video. They are a DAO that is also like incredible touring music. Sorry, I keep glitching. Sorry about that. So they produce on-chain music, incredible crew. So the Park is another one. Purple is another one that was formed, just celebrated 2 years of supporting the Farcaster ecosystem. So that's so there's a whole bunch of other ones that are at all varying price points that you can come in, and many of them are on base now as well, the ones that have come out of the Nouns Builder ecosystem.
Well, we have to, given that Lil Nouns is sponsoring the show today, we have to say the best entry point into the Nouns ecosystem, and this is genuinely the reason why I entered into the Nouns ecosystem via Lil Nouns. It must have been more than a year ago now, either 12 months or 18 months ago. I was a bit confused, as people are as they approach Nouns. Like, this seems like a nice entry point. There were some nice people in there who kind of helped me through the process a little bit, and haven't looked back. Absolutely great place, a great starting point to explore the broader Nouns ecosystem, but also just a great place to hang out on an individual level as well. Prof,
Lil Nouns.wtf, go check them out. Yeah, it's a lot. They're a lot of fun. It's cute art too.
We're running out of time today, Prof, but I have to give you a chance to speak to Farcaster. You're like one of the biggest Farcaster bulls. You're also building GM Farcaster, which is your show that I think runs 3 times a week on Farcaster.
Monday, Wednesday, Friday. You can watch it on Twitter. So you watch it right here on my account.
You're glitching just a little bit, Prof. Your audio seems to be okay. The video is going a little bit. Maybe
I keep glitching. It's driving me crazy. Yeah.
What's the bull case for Farcaster, Prof?
It's built on crypto rails. It's SocialFi, and SocialFi is here, which means that every account on there has a crypto wallet built in. Plus, you can attach your own wallet. So that leads to a lot of incredible experimentation. But the bigger part of Farcaster is the people, and the builder energy that's there is next level. So there's always somebody launching something new there, beta testing something, and a lot of it relates to crypto in different ways. So either on the back end in terms of the technology, the blockchain, or on the cryptocurrency side, where if you are casting, we call it casting, our tweets are called casts, on Farcaster right now, there's a good chance you're earning some kind of token just for putting things out there. So there's one called Moxie that's built into the system, where each reply, like, action, etc., is leading to you receiving some rewards. There's Degen, which can be tipped out to people. There's other things like Ham and Hire that also can be tipped. And because it's happening, everything's built on crypto rails, it's happening pretty seamlessly. And now we have our own little AI agents running around and doing crazy things. There's one called Aether that just launched a week ago and has been taking off, incredibly conversational, and it's coming out of the Hire community. So $Hire. and created by Martin. All of that was sort of all connected to Lil Nouns and Nouns, so mostly Nouns. But it's all a really fascinating sort of interwoven ecosystem. And also Base, Zora, a couple other larger brands are really baked in to Farcaster through their connections there, and have built a lot on that platform, so that you see a lot of that intertwined. You get a lot of alpha from just them just being there, participating. Jesse's super active over there. Jacob from Zora is super active over there. So they're actually, you know, if you want to actually chat with folks like that, you're going to have a much better shot of that over on Farcaster than you will on Twitter. So that's, you know, those are my big reasons for being there. So yeah.
Appreciate that so much, Prof. Kind of feeds back to our previous message, right? About qualitative attention versus quantitative attention. I think Farcaster has definitely captured some of that, or is more powerful for that specific reason.
I'd also point you to, for a market report, I don't know if you looked at the, I'm sure you did, the A16Z crypto state of crypto. There was a big section on Farcaster in particular in there. There's a chart in there that kind of goes over sort of the ecosystem and what's been building out from there. So if you want to dive in a little more from that perspective, that's great, as well as the state of Farcaster report that you can find at snickerdoodle.com. They did an analysis on-chain and off-chain. So they incorporated surveys from the Farcaster community along with on-chain data analysis, and sort of gives you a really good snapshot of what the opportunity is there.
Love it. Prof, we've run out of time today.
Yeah.
Really glad we had a chance to have this conversation. Is there anything else you'd like to share? How can we keep in the loop on all of the things that you're eulogizing?
Well, so GM Farcaster's on 3 days a week. We talk about Farcaster, what's going on that particular day. We're live streaming it. You can join right here on Twitter, or you can join on YouTube for the more active chat. And I am Nounish Prof on Farcaster. We also have a Farcaster 101 series that we just launched a couple weeks ago. So if you are like, I have no idea what this is, I don't know where to start, that's a good place to start. You can also find that right on my on GM Farcaster's Twitter or on mine, either one. And as far as nouns go, follow, you know, all things Nounish. Unfortunately, decentralization is a bug and a feature, and with nouns, we are incredibly decentralized. So we are everywhere, but the best place to find information about nouns, I'm going to tell you, it's Farcaster. The Nouns channel in Farcaster is incredibly active. So /nouns on Farcaster is the best place to find information about nouns.
Thanks so much. We'll definitely follow GM Farcaster if you're interested in Farcaster. To be honest, Prof, you say nouns is decentralized. If I have a nouns question, I just come to you. So follow
there you go.
Prof as well for all things nouns.
Oh, and the Noun Square. The Noun Square on Twitter, very active as well. Very helpful for that. Forgot to mention that.
Thanks so much, Prof. And thanks so much,
you, it's been a pleasure,
everyone, for joining us today. It's been a great show. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll be back same time, same place tomorrow, 7 a.m. Eastern time. We do this for 1 hour every single day on YouTube, X Video, and X Spaces. Have a wonderful day. Take care. We will see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.